a veteran of the newsroom. He's won awards for his sports writing as well. However, he calls himself a rookie when it comes to writing about his own life. Please put your hands together for Morgan Campbell.
All right, guys, thanks for having me out. Really quick, and thank you for like my little cheering section. A lot of special shout out to Nelly Sobre, who will be reading later on. She's the one that encouraged me to start doing this and take Beth's class. So if you like my story, thank Nildis because she encouraged me to do this. If you hate my story, blame Nildis. This is a story about me and my dad in the last year of his life. Here we go. Typical Woodlands Rams. We lost the football game, but we won the fight. I was on the bench and far from the action when it started, but caught the end of the brawl and helped chase some stray Arendelle Raiders off our field. As my team's foes scattered, I patrolled the sideline nearest the bleachers, scowling and strutting in front of teammates and classmates and pretty girls. A baritone voice cut through the post-fight buzz and yanked me out of my tough guy act. Morgan. It's my dad, leaning on the fence, staring a hole through me. Yeah, it was time to leave. My friends knew better than to tease me about Dad embarrassing me like that. Pete Campbell's intolerance for bullshit is common knowledge. That October day, he was less than a month past cancer surgery, acting like his old self and trying to show us he felt that way too, even as the tumors doctors couldn't touch gnawed at his liver. He told my sisters and me he'd live another decade, and we believed him. Much later, I learned he told my mom the truth. Mom scoured newspapers for stories on cancer research. She clipped one about scientists curing a patient by freezing his tumors, then scraping them off his liver. Dad presented it to his oncologist, but learned the treatment wouldn't work on his strain of cancer. Still, we all had faith in chemotherapy. The poison ran black through Dad's veins, killing cancerous and healthy cells alike. His energy waned, his curly hair straightened and fell from his scalp like needles off an old pine tree. A temporary obstacle, he promised us. He had turned 51 that summer and told us he'd bounce back from this and live till 65. He wouldn't live deep into old age, but this felt like the next best thing. To a 16-year-old, another decade feels like forever. And when the chemo ended the following winter, his energy and his hair and his appetite all returned, and again he was the dad we knew. Except he wasn't. 6 years previous, I'd witnessed the bitterest moments of my parents' divorce. Hurtful words hurled back and forth like stones. But after the cancer, my folks started sharing things. Conversations, secrets, hugs. It wasn't reconciliation, but it felt like family again, and that made me happy. Letters from universities recruiting me for football filled our mailbox, and Dad helped me sort through them. He even drove me to London to visit the University of Western Ontario. Usually on our road trips, we visited cities where he had family. He grew up an only child in Chicago, but in Michigan he had an older half-brother who looked like his twin. He also had a younger half-sister we weren't supposed to know existed. Dad and I were in Chicago one summer, and he announced we were going to see my aunt. 10 minutes later, we were at his sister Julia's bakery, where she hugged me like we were never strangers and plied me with sweets. Moments like those, I felt loved and trusted, and most of all, grown. We were old enough to learn family secrets, but Dad chose me to know first. Those weren't just father-son moments to me. We were relating man to man. After the first round of chemo ended and Dad's strength returned, we started spending Friday nights at his place again, talking and watching movies. That summer I noticed his gait stiffen, but I figured his back was acting up again. His energy dissipated, but who didn't feel sluggish in the muggy summer weather? Dad was 6 feet tall and sturdy, even after the surgery, but I couldn't explain why the pounds melted away, so I didn't try. One Saturday morning, nearly a year after his operation, I sat on the couch in his apartment. He eased into a new leather recliner and mentioned the pain in his legs and the increasing physical strain of simple movements like walking and cleaning the kitchen. Is it your back, Dad? Morgan. It's the cancer. The sentence sucked the air from my lungs. I sat and I stared and I groped for words, but I found none. Dad assured me he would be fine. He said he was scheduled to start another round of chemo the next month. He told me he would still drive me to a football camp in Waterloo the next weekend. Then he handed me $20 and sent me to the barber shop. School started next Tuesday and I needed a fresh haircut. But the pain in his leg kept throbbing. His back grew stiffer. By the next night, he needed a cane to walk down the hall. And by Tuesday morning, he was in hospital. When I arrived, drugs had dulled the pain and he was sitting up in bed chatting with the pastor. My dad never went to church. Mom pulled me aside and told me Dad would not accept me skipping football on Sunday, but I would need to find somebody else to drive me. And that was when I knew. Overnight, his legs kept swelling, and by morning, the whites of Dad's eyes had turned yellow. When I returned the next afternoon, he wasn't asleep, but he wasn't quite awake, thanks to the painkillers. I stood next to his bed, and I rambled to him about school and about football, but stopped talking when I saw he couldn't respond. The nurse said he could still hear me and urged me to keep speaking, but I couldn't summon words. I held his hand until it was time to leave. I tried not to process how much I would miss him at all the big events looming that school year. Football games, track meets, graduation. And I couldn't think ahead to how proud I would feel years later when folks would point out how similar I was to him, even in bad ways. Morgan, you don't communicate, some girlfriend would say. Yep. I'm Pete Campbell's son. But I couldn't dodge the hospital and the painkillers and the grown-ups huddling with doctors just out of earshot. I felt scared and exposed. It felt like losing a suit of armor. Dad started treating me like an adult, but I was about to learn just how much growing up I still had to do, and it terrified me. What if I wasn't ready? After midnight, I climbed out of bed and retrieved a notebook because I was still too proud to kneel and self-conscious about praying out loud. I sat at my desk, I found a clean page and hunched over it. Dear God, I wrote, if you're listening, please let him live. Thank you.